I stared at the email on my screen, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, the words blurring through the hot sting of tears. We intend to sue you for the $16K, plus whatever is currently in the account, and additional damages for emotional distress. My half-brothers, Mac and Joe boys I'd loved like my own flesh and blood had turned on me. The betrayal sliced through me deeper than any knife, leaving a raw, aching wound in my soul. How had it come to this? A family legacy meant to bind us, now tearing us apart like fragile paper in a storm. It all started when I was just a toddler, barely 3 years old, oblivious to the world of loss and inheritance that would one day define my relationships. My grandparents, the pillars of our family, passed away suddenly in a car accident that shattered everyone. Grandma with her warm hugs and stories of far-off lands, Grandpa with his booming laugh and endless wisdom, they were gone in an instant. In their will, they set up a savings account in my name, a nest egg that grew quietly over the years, untouched until I turned 21. By then, it held just over $300,000, a fortune that felt both like a blessing and a heavy burden. Along with the account came a letter, handwritten in Grandpa's steady script, yellowed at the edges from time. "Dearest granddaughter," it began, "we hope this provides for you and any other Smith-Jones children that may come. Share it fairly as you see fit." Smith-Jones, that was the hyphenated name for kids from my dad, a Smith, and my mom, a Jones. They meant full siblings, the ones who shared both parents. But life doesn't always follow neat plans. My parents divorced when I was 5, amid whispers of Dad's infidelity that I was too young to understand. Mom remarried, but no more kids came. Dad, though, moved on with his new wife stepmom, and they had Mac and Joe, my half-brothers, sharing Dad's blood but not Mom's. Legally the wording was clear, the money was mine alone, no obligations to half-siblings. But my heart? It saw them as brothers, plain and simple. We'd grown up together in a blended family mess, weekend visits, shared holidays, arguments over toys that turned into teenage banter. Mac, the youngest at 19 now, with his infectious grin and dreams of becoming a musician. Joe, 21, more serious, always the planner, talking about college and startups. They were family, and the money? It came from our shared grandparents. So, in my mind, fairness meant equality. I'd divide it 3 ways, $100K each. When Mac turned 21, we split any interest or growth left over. It felt right, like honoring the spirit of the letter, even if not the letter of the law. When I turned 21 4 years ago, the world felt full of possibilities. I was fresh out of community college, working a barista job that barely paid the bills, but that account was my ticket to stability. Dad, ever the opportunist, suggested I'd buy a house with my share. "Invest in your future, kiddo," he'd said, clapping me on the back with that salesman smile of his. I found a cozy little bungalow, nothing fancy, but it had a garden where I could plant flowers like Grandma used to, and a porch for lazy evenings. It was $130,000, though, and banks laughed at my credit score. No mortgage for a 21-year-old with student loans. Dad had an idea. Borrow $30K from the account. "It's yours to manage, right? Pay it back over time." I hesitated, the weight of responsibility pressing on me. But the house called to me, a symbol of independence after years of bouncing between homes. I withdrew the money, promising myself and silently, my brothers, I'd repay it before they needed theirs. Monthly, I scraped together payments from my paycheck, watching the account balance tick up slowly. Interest helped, but life threw curveballs. A car repair here, medical bills there. Today, the account should be at $208K, but with my withdrawals and partial repayments, it's sitting at $195K. I still owe $13K. Guilt gnawed at me every time I checked the statements, but I was on track 2 more years, and it'd be whole. Then Joe turned 21. Excitement bubbled in me as I transferred his first installment, $50K, because he wanted it in chunks to avoid blowing it all at once. "Smart thinking," I'd told him, hugging him tight at his birthday dinner. But as we sat in Dad's living room, going over the paperwork, Joe's eyes narrowed at the balance. Wait, this isn't right. Where's the rest? His voice was sharp, accusatory, like I slapped him. I explained everything, the house, the loan, the repayments. I'm putting it back, Joe, before Mac's turn. It's all good. But his face twisted, hurt flashing in his eyes before anger took over. He stormed out, phone in hand, and by evening Mac was calling, his voice trembling with rage. You stole from us? That's our money too. Stole. The word hit like a punch to the gut. I'd sacrificed nights out, extra shifts, all to rebuild what I borrowed for a roof over my head. And now they saw me as a thief? They demanded the $13,000 back immediately, plus $3,000 in lost interest. $16,000 total by summer less than 6 months away. My stomach churned. I can do it over 2 years, like planned, I pleaded, tears welling up during our heated call. That's fair. They drafted a contract, emailing it over with cold formality. I printed it, pen in hand, ready to sign and make peace. But there it was, repayment in full within 6 months. Betrayal surged through me again. We agreed on 2 years. I shouted into the phone when they called to check. Their response? Figure it out, we're entitled. Or we'll sue. The email came that night, the one threatening legal action, demanding not just the $16,000, but the entire account, plus damages for emotional distress. My hands shook as I read it, the room spinning. Emotional distress? What about mine? The sister who'd chosen to share out of love, now vilified. I fired back. Legally, you were never entitled to any of it. Given your attitudes, the $50,000 Joe's got is fair. That's all. Silence, then chaos. Text flooded in. You're a liar. Going back on our deal. Thief. Calls I let go to voicemail, their voices cracking with fury. I blocked them, curling up on my couch, sobs racking my body. How could family do this? They didn't stop. Social media exploded, posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter tagging me, our extended family. My sister screwing us out of our grandparents' inheritance. Joe's post went viral in our circle, likes and shares from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Messages poured in, aunts scolding me for being greedy, uncles demanding I do the right thing. The harassment was relentless, each notification a fresh stab of pain. I felt isolated, exposed, my reputation shredded online for all to see. Amid the storm, a message from a stranger. Chris Smith, 27 years old, claiming to be my half-brother. My breath caught. Photos attached him as a kid, sandy hair like Dad's, posing with our grandparents. One even had me in it, toddler me on Grandpa's lap, Chris beside us. Proof undeniable. He had his own account, 150K, with a similar letter. For Dad's illegitimate children to be shared fairly. Illegitimate. The word hung heavy. Chris explained, Dad's a fair baby, born before me but hidden. And there was another our half-sister, 18 now, from yet another fling. Chris had been searching for us, piecing together the family puzzle. But Dad's post sharing Joe's rant had tagged me, leading him straight here. We met at a coffee shop, nerves jangling. Chris was kind-eyed, his smile tentative but genuine. I've wondered about you, he said, voice soft with emotion. We pored over documents, laughing bitterly at Dad's secrets. A solicitor confirmed, my fund for Smith-Jones kids, legitimate from Mom. Chris's for the others, no crossover. Relief washed over me, mingled with sorrow for the fractured family we'd uncovered. I sent Mac and Joe a formal letter. Back off, stop the posts, enjoy the $50,000, it's all you're getting. Their response? More fury but now directed inward. Joe hoarded his money, refusing to share with Mac, who felt doubly betrayed. Whispers reached me stepmom, learning of the other siblings, the half-sister born after her marriage to Dad. Rage boiled over. She kicked him out into a dingy hotel room. Dad called me daily, begging, his voice broken. Reconsider please, for the family. But I was done. The love I poured into them had been met with greed and venom. Chris and my sister. They were the silver lining, new bonds forming from the ashes. As I sat in my little house, the one I'd fought for, emotions swirled. Anger, grief, resolve. The inheritance was never just money. It was trust, now shattered. Yet in the ruins, I found strength and a family worth keeping.